Well, it's got it.
We'll pause. We'll pause you real quick. I'll tinkle too. We'll be right back, folks. And we're back. So you say you got into archery, or you tried it?
I tried it.
You tried it?
Yeah, I tried it. Yes, sir.
Where'd you go?
I was in France. So I was in France working on the wine. And we were at the vineyard, and we were like, let's shoot some bows. So we had some French archers come out, and they had a compound, and they had like just another like
Recurve bow?
like traditional yeah. And Joe Rogan, that is hard to do.
It's not easy to do.
It is not easy to do at all. And they want you to go forward. Do you go forward when you shoot?
No. They told you to go forward?
Yeah.
No.
Maybe it was with like.
Was it a
like an old oak bow?
Oh, okay, a long bow.
Yeah. So they like told you to go forward
Interesting.
whenever to help your aim or something.
Interesting.
Which seems counterintuitive because you don't want to really move when you're.
Well,
aiming something.
the whole thing about those old bows, whether it's a recurve or a long bow, is that it's much more of a feel thing. Like you have to practice with them a lot, almost like throwing a rock, right? If you throw a rock, or a baseball is a better example. When you throw a baseball, you know how much energy you have to put into that throw in order to get into that strike zone if you're throwing a pitch, right?
Sure.
So that's like a knowledge of how much force and how you can aim. This is the same thing applies to arrows. You shoot enough arrows, you know like where you have to hold, thank you, sir, at what distance when you're releasing an arrow, because you know the arc of the arrow.
It's feel.
It's feel. Compound archery, what I do is very different. It's much more calculated. I have a range finder. It'll tell me 52 yards. I dial it on my sight to 52 yards. My pin moves up and down, and then I'm holding.
So do you have Picatinny on your bow?
What's Picatinny rail in the front? Yes, I do.
Cool.
Yes.
So you put like an aim point on
Well,
your bow
this is where the sight comes out of. The sight is
what
slightly
optic
to
are
the
you
left.
using?
Well, I don't use an optic.
Okay.
You use a it's just a clear hole, like a tube with a fiber optic pin in it.
Okay.
And that fiber optic pin is the indicator that tells you what yardage, like if it's up or down, right? So if it's up, that means it's a close shot. If it's down, very low, that means it's a long shot. So it's the arc of the arrow over a course of time. And it's all calculated on this thing called Archer's Advantage, which is a computer program.
Okay.
So you put in the speed of the bow, the weight of the arrow, all these different factors, and you put it in, and it'll give you a sight tape.
Nerd.
And then,
Okay.
super nerd.
Okay, yes,
and then you
sir.
take this sight tape and like you dial it into 20 yards. Once you know where 20 yards is, you got that indicator mark. You narc it off, and then you put the tape down. And then once you put that tape down, you're good to go to like
And you just
100
get your-
yards, 110 yards, wherever you want.
You just
It'll
do your
show-
hold there.
Exactly. Just hold where that pin is. It's a much easier way of shooting a bow than traditional.
But do you have a laser rangefinder?
Yes.
Who makes a rangefinder?
Oh, but shit ton of companies.
Is it the same as like a firearm rangefinder on a
Yes,
bow?
very similar. A lot of the same companies, like Vortex.
Yeah.
They make a great rangefinder. I use a Leupold Full Draw 5 because it actually tells you. You put in the arrow speed and all these different factors, and it actually shows you the arc of the arrow in the rangefinder. So, like if I'm trying to shoot an elk through a pocket in the trees, it's like this big, and I'm 35 yards away, I have to know that my arrow's not going to hit the upper branches.
Sure.
So I can, because at the height of the arrow, it's higher than when it's going to drop down.
Right.
So you're putting the pin where it wants to drop down, but it might be like way up here when it's at 5 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards, and then it's going to drop down into that spot exactly where you want it to go. So this rangefinder, how big is what?
The rangefinder.
It's little. It's like a phone size. So like that's it right there. So I have it's called a Leupold Full Draw 5. But I have a Vortex one that's great too. It just doesn't have that thing where you can, the reason why I use the Full Draw 5 is that line is gigantic if you're shooting through obstacles and through branches. Because a lot of times an elk will be in an opening. Like there's two trees and they're like 5 feet wide, but there's like this one branch that's above him. and you have that's it. See, so that line right there, it shows
That's
you
your okay.
the height of the arrow. So like right there, that in my mind, I would think that could hit that branch.
And is that your hold there? Are you aiming for that spot?
No. The hold is where the crosshairs are.
Okay.
And what that's indicative, that line at the top is indicative of the very height of your arrow when it's at its highest point.
Ah.
So that was a long shot. That's 78 yards. Which is a little unethical. It's a long poke for a deer.
Sure.
But real elite archers can do it. If you're like, a Cam Haines, that's a shot that he can take.
Unethical because you might
For
hit
a
him
guy
in the
like
knee
me,
or something.
I might fuck that shot up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take that shot, but I would on a big animal like a buffalo or something like that. You have the vitals are this big.
Have you ever shot, or what do you call it? Shooting?
Archery?
Like what do you say when
say shoot,
shooting?
Shoot an arrow.
Have you ever shot under like night vision and nods and stuff?
No, that would be wild. But
Do you have
you'd
a
have a
pair?
hard time. I do. You'd have a hard time seeing, like, you wouldn't hold. See, like the thing about archery is, and it's one of the beautiful things about it, is like everything's repeatable. Like you have to have perfect form. So like when I come to full draw, my string touches the tip of my nose. This is in the corner of the D loop is in the corner of my mouth.
Does it ever fuck you up?
My knuckle is exactly where my jaw lines up. That's where my knuckle sits. It's a repeatable point.
Sure.
If I have nods on, it's not going to work.
Right.
You can't even do it with glasses. I don't even like it with glasses on. It feels weird. It's like I have to be lined up with that string. And when I'm lined up with that string, I don't think about a fucking thing in the world. All I think about is releasing a perfect arrow. That's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about taxes. I need gas. I got to fucking get my car inspected.
I got to buy more arrows.
I'm not thinking about any of those things. All I'm thinking of is that spot that I'm aiming at. And I think there's a mind cleansing thing that comes from that.
And the release of it. It's got to feel like so fucking good. Like, because I tried, the hardest part for me was getting that
bow back
and holding it.
Yes.
Holding
Very
that
hard.
string.
Yeah.
Like, that was the hard. It takes a lot of shoulder. It takes a lot of arm.
My body's imbalanced. The right side of my body is thicker, like all the way down my lats, my upper delts. Everything is much thicker on this side because I pull a bow back a fucking 100 times a day.
Yeah.
Every day. It's like these muscles. I really have to balance it out. I feel it sometimes.
Well, I have the same thing, but from jacking off.
Just switch hands.
Yeah, well,
The stranger.
The old stranger. It's hard, man. After that experience, I was like, you know what? And plus, the first couple times shooting, were you scared?
Of shooting a bow? Yeah. It feels
Because that is so snappy. And when I was a kid, I had like a little fake bow. And that's why I get the wrist guard.
Yes.
Because that shit comes and it blew my arm up. It blew